920 on the Triad's News Radio, AM 600, 1200 WSJS. Mike Wells is here from You and the Law. If you have a question, 777-1600, 777-1600. But we're talking about credit counseling today specifically, and I guess, Mike, it's good for people to know that all is not lost when you get in a situation like that, because sometimes people get down not knowing that there is help, and they never get out of that hole.
Exactly, and just to kind of give you an example of sort of the contrast of some of these for-pay groups, and that's not to say all of them are bad. I'm not suggesting that. What I am saying is that, there are no quick fixes, and what folks typically do when they have we can clean up all your credit problems.
Mm-hmm.
Well, the law basically says that if you've got matters on your credit report that are negative, you can challenge those and say, I challenge that, and then after a certain period of time, they'll come off. But then within another period of time, those creditors, when it finally catches up with them that something's been removed, they can reinstate it, you see. So for a temporary period, you pay me, $2,000, yeah, I can clean up your credit report because I know what to do and how to challenge these things, and in 30 days, if they don't respond, which is not uncommon, they come off. And so I declare victory and say, JR, cleaned up your credit report.
Give me $2,000 or whatever.
Yeah, and then, but within 60 days or so, the creditors can come in and say, well, in other words, they have a window of time to come back and say,
right,
reinstate stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not like there's some magic place that all your credit report negative entries just kind of go away because somebody knows what to do. I mean, if you owe the money, you owe the money. So that's sort of the quick fix that folks think, well, I can make it all go away. Well, you can't make it all go away, but what you can do is if you have a credible source who will negotiate some of these percentages, that's the credible source that you can do. So if you get that, you can go and get credit counseling for $30 on the initial session and $10 on following sessions. So that's a lot better, and it's confidential, and folks don't know you've been out there, and they don't call up your employer and ask them any questions. And where's Sarah? I thought she was going to be here at noon. Right. I'm calling from Consumer Credit. It's like going to a doctor's office or a lawyer's office. Now it's not a legal privilege like attorney-client, but at any rate, it's very confidential, and so I would really encourage folks. I see folks that end up having to file bankruptcy, and if they had just gotten upstream a period of time, and when they had seen these things coming, when they first got in these problems, if they would just make a call, find out what their options are, then they could kind of get through sort of the dip in the road, and then once they kind of get that kind of squared away, they get a plan, then, they're back at work, and, whatever it is that caused them to have the dip is gone, and they've got that income restored. They're able to plow through, and they catch up, and, they don't have to file bankruptcy. But if it just keeps kind of, rolling down the hill and you get, things out of control, and then, you keep ignoring it, you just sort of think, well, maybe I'll awaken one day, and, gosh, somehow it'll all work out. It just doesn't happen that way. And then you come in, and then, you have options, but there aren't going to be any good ones. And then many folks end up, in order to stop that foreclosure sale or to, keep from losing everything, they end up having to file bankruptcy. And it's just when somebody has a strong income, that's just an unfortunate circumstance.
Yeah, and there is a time when you can do something, but then there gets to be a time where it becomes more and more difficult to do something about it, isn't it?
Right, and it doesn't mean that you necessarily have to do what they tell you to do, but if you don't, quote, go to the doctor,
you're never going to get well.
You're never. Sure. You've got to have a hard target assessment of where you are and what your circumstances are, whether it involves legal issues, medical issues, your car, your house. You hear some buzzing, you think it's starting. You gotta find out, and sometimes you don't like what you find out, but it's better to find out now than later.
9:36 on the Triad News Radio. Thank you for being with us this morning. Mike Wells is here. If you have a question, 777-1600, 777-1600. But we're focusing on consumer credit counseling and the things that you can do to get yourself straightened out if you ever get in a situation, and if you are, something that you can do right now, because we don't have to look very far range to find people that are having problems. Maybe, I don't know, we probably need to get the people from Consumer Credit Counseling in here sometime to talk about just, is it really as bad as we hear, or is it that much bigger? You have a pretty good handle on that.
Well, I think so, and I've talked to them about the prospect of maybe doing a show, or maybe even you doing a piece in one of your
I would love to
hour segments, because I do think this is an issue that, I mean, we can look at it as a legal thing, which it clearly is, but it really needs to be seen in a broader context, because the idea is to avoid the legal issues. That's the ticket. And if you can set up an issue where you can address it sooner rather than later, and kind of be proactive as these things come up. One of the things that sort of precipitated certainly the crisis and some of the issues that caused the mortgage crisis is so-called ARM loans, adjustable rate mortgage. And for our listeners, you probably know most of this anyway, but there are two kinds of mortgages you can have generally. One that says, well, my rate is 5.5%, and it's going to be 5.5% annually for the whole length of the loan, 10 years, 15, 30 years.
Whatever. So
it's fixed. It's never going to go up. My payment's going to be X, and the only variables are my taxes and my homeowner's payment. But if you have an adjustable rate mortgage, then it provides, well, I'll start out with this rate, but after a period of time, my rate adjusts. And there are all kinds of indices that sort of factor in all that. But the gist of it is, more than likely, as costs go up, the cost of inflation goes up, et cetera, then that number is going to be going higher. And so what's happened on some of these loans is that they've started out an adjustable rate, or at a rate that's good for a year or two or something, that may be, that you could just barely sort of qualify for that payment. But then when it goes up a couple of points, or even more sometimes, then, you've got a payment that you just can't afford, you see. So once that adjustable rate mortgage, which is often called an ARM, once that goes up, you're in the ditch. So that's why so many folks, why this thing has sort of kind of come to the fore, is that, well, how all of a sudden did people quit making their payment? Well, if they had the payment they had, but the payment that they had now is a different payment, and so they're not able to pay for it. So now there are issues about, should they have loaned them the money in the first place and things like that. But because of the economy issues, because people's incomes are not going up, they're not going to have the increased net revenue that gives them the money to pay. I mean, that's sort of the anticipation. Well, you're going to keep going. Well, a lot of incomes, of course, in this economy are flat. So at any rate, so that's what sort of caused this, the trip, that's what's kind of tipped folks over into financial problems. And
the other, and it's not even, we've talked about a lot on this program, is whether they deserve the loan or not just isn't even a factor. They got it now.
Yeah.
And what are you going to do about it?